So today's August 5th. Man, since I got funded, I've really slacked at maintaining videos, keeping videos, taking videos, and stuff like that in the moment. So while I'm enjoying this blizzard, I just want to take a moment to really like slow down and just recap. And this is great. And really go over some of the things that have really happened since I've gotten funded. So just a quick update. Currently, this is week 4. Yeah, this is week 4 of me being funded. Technically, I'm at break even. I've taken a total of like 6 trades, I want to say. And week 1 was really interesting because going into the week, I was like, okay, like we're finally back. You know, we're in the same position we were in last year, just a month ahead. You know, last year I got funded, I want to say in August. And this time around, I got funded in July. I'm feeling really good, but this time I know that I have the experience. I'm like, okay, let me slow down. Let me be still. Let me be present. Let me remember, you know, like I talked about in the last video, like you are a consistent, profitable day trader. The same thing that allowed you to get funded and to pass phase 1 and to pass phase 2 will be the same thing and the same reason and the same mentality that will allow you to grow this account long term. So try not to think short term. Well, in that, I guess my eagerness really put me in a position to take a couple of trades I probably shouldn't have. So my very first trade was a GJ trade, and it had been consolidating, and price really hadn't officially broken out, especially the way that I trade consolidation breakouts, but directionally it was still moving very bearish. And so price had made like a quick pullback. I got in for a sell. And the thing that's funny is my dude Landon, I was talking to him about it. He's like, bro, like I think this is probably a trade you probably shouldn't take. I was talking to Kristen and she was like, I mean, like, I don't know, you know, like, I don't know. And after doing so, I really slowed down and considered what they were saying. I was like, you know what, like maybe this is the Holy Spirit saying like, hey, you probably shouldn't take this trade. Like, don't take this trade. However, me being me and my eagerness for trade number 1 is gonna be the trade where I make $10,000 or I make 10%, which 10% on a $100,000 account is $10,000. But I can make 10% off this trade. Let me just take this trade. I took the trade. Trade ends up hitting stop loss. And that was kind of like a reality check because I really was like, man, like I didn't want to start this funded account in drawdown, but here I am in drawdown. And the enemy really tried to come in and remind me of what happened last year when I got funded, which was I literally had this beautiful going to phase 1. I had my first winning trade. I have multiple winning trades. I go to phase 2. I pass phase 1 and 2. I'm funded in 2 weeks. And I immediately go into being funded. And in the span of 3 trading weeks, I hadn't won a single trade and I ended up losing the account. And this, to a degree, felt like that for a moment. And so I was kind of worried, but I, persisted through. I kept trading. I think I took another trade. I think I took a EJ trade maybe. I think I took an EJ trade. That trade ended up losing. Now I'm down 4%. I get into GA for a buy. That trade ends up doing really well. And I remember being in my prayer class. I remember being at the Bible study. Shout out to the Bible study. I was there. And like, man, like I felt so grateful because it was like a hug from God of him basically saying like, trust in me, I got you. You know, like we didn't get you to this point to throw it all away. And seeing that trade take off and get really close to TP had me feeling really grateful. And immediately after that, in my eagerness, I ended up taking another trade, which was trade number 4. And shout out to Landon, that's my guy. Very humble, very disciplined trader. I'm a lot more eager and erotic, and I'm willing to take chances, and I'm okay with losing trades, at times. But he was like, hey, like, that was your 3rd trade. I think you should just call it like quits for the week. And I ended up getting into another EJ trade, mainly because this trade was very textbook. It was a very textbook trade, like A+ setup, beautiful trade. Got into the trade goes and hits stop loss. And I finished week 1 having taken 4 trades and I'm down, I want to say, I think I was down 2 or 3% overall, because that GA trade ended up going up. And if my TP was right here, that trade got to right here before it reversed down. And I ended up closing with, instead of making 9%, I ended up closing with about 3 or 4. So yeah, I would have been down about 2.5% overall. I go into week 2, feeling really good as well. I think I ended up taking 2 trades. But however, going into week 2, this is the thing that's so cool. Why I love God so much. I really sat down and I was like, okay, I need to process and work my way through everything that I'm feeling right now. And this is great. Because there's a side of me that is genuinely feeling like I'm a fraud, feeling like I am incapable, even though we just traded for 2 months straight in past phase 1 and past phase 2, and God did all these amazing things, and I can see him. I know that he's flowing in me, and I can see how he's showing up, not just in myself, but in the people around me. I know that he's here, and yet there's still this piece of fear attached to my flesh, and that's okay. So I took the time, I sat down, and I went to my prayer closet, and I prayed about it. I talked to my father about it, and we had this moment where he basically told me, or basically this illustration came to my mind, which is, I think sometimes something that a lot of us do, and especially myself, I did it last year, where we'll trust in God, we'll have faith and hope and, all these different things, and fully trust in him. And the moment we can see the promised land on the other side of the horizon, we try to take control of the wheel, we try to drive, and we end up getting in the way of what it is that God's doing. And inevitably, we end up crashing. And God told me, I've brought you this far. I've already told you that I will deliver you through this. I want you to sit down and be present. I want you to sit down and enjoy these last days. I want you to be intentional about noticing me in everything that you do, in every part of your day. I want you to be present. Allow every moment, allow every 1 second to feel like 5. Because there's going to come a time where these days are going to be a distant memory. And that gave me comfort, because number one, I can slow down. I can feel like there's not a due date. I need to be here by this time. I need to be here by this date, because God's already promised it. And I can see the evidence, his presence of his promise the entire journey. And I can have peace knowing that he's got it and it's in his hand. I don't need to put a due date on something that he's already determined. And so I started to really just slow down and be a lot more present. And so week 1, I did 4 trades. Week 2, I just did 2. And they were both really good trades. I took a GA trade. That was a really great setup. It was like a 1 to 10. It was a beautiful trade setup, but it was a little aggressive, and price ended up shooting back up before it turned around and engulfed back down on the 8-hour time frame, and created a tweezer engulfing, if that makes sense, and up creating that. And I could have gotten back in. However, whenever my first position lost, that GA trade lost, I ended up getting into, I want to say, was it EJ? I want to say I got back into EJ. It was EJ or UJ. I got into one of them and had a really beautiful setup and got into that trade and just followed it down. I believe it was UJ. Got into that trade. It was a really great trade. And I just said, no, I'm not going to jump into another trade. I'm just going to slow down, manage this position right here, and see what happens. So I let the GA trade go. The GA trade did end up dropping, but like I said, we let it go. And same with my UJ trade. That trade dropped and was heading to TP, and it didn't get there. It actually stopped at what would have been my TP1, but I thought price did reverse. Price reversed, but it didn't commit to the reversal. So it did one of those where it drops, breaks structure, and instead of going all the way down, it literally went here and turned around, went right back up. And price ended up creating this double top consolidative thing, which I believe price ended up concluding with last week. But Yeah, so I think I only ended up making about 4% off of that trade, or maybe I made about 5. Anyways, that put me right back at break even. And so going into last week, something heavy in my spirit was like, I need to just take the week off, be still, and be fully present, because I feel like it's really important to, especially for myself, to miss trades, to have good trade opportunities come in and to let them go. Because oftentimes I can get so consumed with, I need to make sure I'm taking every single trade, every trade opportunity I need to make sure I'm getting into, because if I don't take that trade opportunity, then I'm not following my plan. It's just this constant run-on sentence that doesn't have an end. It doesn't have a pause, you know, and it forces me to want to make decisions that I probably shouldn't. Case in point, like that very first trade that I took, that is a trade I shouldn't have taken. But because I was so eager in knowing that price was going to drop, I forced myself to get in premature. So having moments where we can step away and remove ourselves from the charts and be okay with missing trade opportunities, if not being intentional in missing a trade opportunities, allowed me to be regrounded and honestly just be regrounded and trust the process. And so going to last week, which was also NFP week, I think, granted, the markets did some weird stuff. There were 2 trade opportunities that were had, mainly one really beautiful one. And I remember sitting on my couch thinking, man, that's a really great trade opportunity I should probably take. And technically this is a trade that would flow into this week. However, I was like, no, I'm gonna be true to what we said and go this entire week without trading. And we did. And that trade actually went on to hit TP. But because I allowed myself to miss that trade, it puts me in a better position to make better trades going forward. And so I'm currently in a position now where, like I said, I'm at break even, basically break even. Technically my P&L is positive $500, but I've been hit with 0.8% in fees, which is about $800 in fees. So technically I'm down about $400, give or take, $400, something like that, which is insane. But yeah, overall we're feeling really good. Like I said, I'm gonna get back on track and being intentional as far as like documenting and stuff like that. Even though I do at this moment feel a little off, my focus is a little skewed to a degree. I am trying to figure out how to navigate certain spaces with certain people the right way, especially when it's a lot easier for me to just separate myself from the thing, but that isn't always, that's not always important and necessary. Sometimes it's important to trust in God and allow God to speak through you in a space, especially a space that He's redefined. And so I've been navigating that. I've been really navigating that and praying a lot into Paul when he talked about in 2 Corinthians 12:9 and 10. After he went up to the third heaven, he came back down and he was given a thorn in his side. And 3 times he prayed for it to be removed. And the Lord said, my grace is sufficient. And so now he boasts all the more greatly in his weaknesses, because his weakness is made perfect and by God's strength, something along those lines. And therefore he's content with calamities, hardships, persecutions, all the things. So yeah, it's a little scary, but really trusting in Him and growing, trying to be mature and wise and lean into God and pray into things, and just trust Him to resolve things. And so it's kind of a tangent, but like what I mean resolve things, I mean like maintain peace and order and balance and understanding, between people in a space. And so it's been interesting, just trusting in the Lord with that and showing up with 100% of myself and allowing my weakness to be expressed so that His strength can flow in me and through me. And so it's new, but we're getting back on track. Like I said, I want to be intentional about making this video, recapping over everything and staying on track. You know, like I said, we're funded. We have 100K. The goals are still the goals. I still want to either have a 250K personal account by the end of the year, or 250K withdrawn, or access to 250K from trading by the end of the year. And so I do have some other ideas. Like, I do want to take another prop challenge and get a $500,000 account, either through Swaggy, or I might go through E8 Markets, one or the other. I'm not too sure yet. Originally, I was thinking E8 just because they have a lot of great attachments, I guess. Attachments isn't the right word, but they have a lot of great options that I really like. But I really want to honor Swaggy. He's the one that I learned a lot of things that I know. 90% of my trading originates from him, and so I would like to honor that. And plus, I have a vision of being interviewed by him and having a conversation with him, talking about God, but also honoring him and being like, yo, like, I learned everything that I know from you, but I got to a point where I realized, like, Swaggy's not going to get me here. Like, you're not going to get me to this point. You're not going to get me to cross this line like I am. You know, I had to like step out and really make it happen. You know, going back to the last thing that he told me, like, hey, like, bro, a lot of these things clear up when you make some money, so go make some money. And so I had this very vivid dream of being interviewed by him, and one of the lanes to go through that is to go through his prop firm and have the biggest account and have one of the biggest payouts, if not multiple. So it's gonna be a fun rest of the year, but until then, we will be still and know the Lord is our God. And yeah, but appreciate y'all. I'm gonna finish this blizzard, and yeah.